Imagine being trapped in an endless ocean for 370 days. No plan, no preparation, but God miraculously feeds you. Not only you, but your entire family who's with you. Not only them, but 6,300 animals that are with you. This is how many people portray the story of Noah and the ark. It's kind of like a passive miracle in a sense, where people think that, Noah, he just got on the ark and he floated and God did the rest. Is that really what took place? There's some really important questions we're going to pose tonight about this story, but not just the story of Noah. Jesus said that we need to learn lessons from the time of Noah and the application of those things to us right now at the end of the world. We're going to see what actually took place. Now, we need to know, was this just Noah randomly cast and trapped in the middle of the ocean? Or was it a little bit more planned out? Did it look a little bit more like this instead of like this? You might think this is a little bit of a funny image, but this is how a lot of people portray this story, that there was no thought, there was no preparation, and it's just a miracle, right? That's all it was. Yes, people say he built the boat and everything else, but how involved was actually Noah in planning and preparing for this monumentous event that covered the whole world in water? Was there a little bit more thought put into this? Was there a little bit more effort? How much effort actually was there? How did he end up feeding all of these animals? How did he end up watering all these animals? What about cleaning? What about septic? What about all these things that a lot of times we don't even think about? How long was he there? Well, you have a little bit of a hint based on the title. We're going to ask a lot of these questions and a lot more as we go through this study. This is a very important thing, because when we talk about the final judgments that are happening to the world, a lot of people's story is kind of like the first one that I gave, where it's just a passive miracle. Things are going to happen in the world, and God's just going to surround us with this godlike bubble. And we're going to be impervious to everything around us. It doesn't matter where we are, doesn't matter what we're doing, doesn't matter what we've done. We're just instantly in a safe place, because, God would never let his people be hurt. Trapped for 370 days. Is this just a miracle? Now, Psalms 91 verse 8 says, "Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked." But is this all just by God's miraculous dealings? Does it have nothing to do with what me and you are doing, that we can stand right in the firing line and we're not going to be hit? Or do we need to take the warnings that God has been giving? Do we need to do a little bit of thinking and processing on some of these things? We're going to see what we can find in this story of Noah, and we're going to answer some questions, and we're going to see some details about the story of Noah that you've probably never thought about and never heard about before. Hebrews 11:7 says, "By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet," in other words, he gave him a prophecy, "moved with fear." Now, this isn't fear as in he was scared. He had fear, he had reverence, he's seen the seriousness It's if I'm walking in the bush, and I grew up in the bush my entire life, and wild animals don't really concern me, but you have a healthy respect for wild animals. If there's a bear, if there's a mom with cubs, you're not going to go run up and try and grab one of the cubs. You're going to respect that, and you're going to show this fear. You're not going to run up to it, but you're also not going to run away from it. You have to do what is the appropriate thing in that situation. So Noah, having respect for what God said, prepared an ark because of what God told him the prophecy was, to the saving of his house. So because he did this, he saved his family, by the which he condemned the world. And that's a very intriguing one that we're going to get a little bit more into later. And became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Doesn't it seem that the story of Noah is a little bit more like righteousness by works? Because he apparently built this boat, or maybe maybe God just kind of laid it all out for him. There's a movie long time ago, and there's been several Noah movies, but I seen one scene one time from an old one where Noah was basically given all the number, and it was laid out, it was numbered and everything, and the wood was all there. All he had to do was assemble. Is that how it was? Did God just, poof, and food was in every pen and every stall for every animal? Matthew 24. This is Jesus speaking. But as the days of Noah were. So as the days of Noah were, before, during all this time period, what was happening there, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So as it was then, it'll be now. So whatever lessons we can learn, and what Noah had these insights into, we need to learn from that, because we're going to be going through a similar situation today. So whatever Noah had to do, maybe that's something we're going to have to do. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, here's the thing. Did these people not see Noah building his ark? Did they not hear him for 120 years as he was telling them there's going to be a flood? And it was as if nothing was happening until the flood came and took them all away. Now, we're going to go to the whiteboard. We're going to go to the whiteboard for a minute. And we're going to lay out some thoughts that I think are really important. Okay. Because what we're trying to do in these studies is we're laying the framework and the groundwork and building ourselves a timeline of events that is going to happen at the end of the world. Now, in order to do that, we need to properly lay these things out. Okay. So I just need to move this off here because I can't see. We have Noah. Okay. So here's Noah. I'm going to give him a beard because we always picture him as an older guy. There's Noah. And the first thing that we know about this story is there is a message. This is a trumpet. There's a message from heaven that judgment is coming. This is a very important point. Judgment is coming on the world. Before we continue, let's have a word of prayer before we go any further. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, that we can come, that we can study your word together. Be with your people, and Lord, give me the words to say, be with the equipment, and please bless this study that we are having, and that we would learn lessons and that we would heed what is written in your word. In Jesus' name, amen. So we have Noah, and he has this warning that judgment is coming. And sorry, just give me 1 second here. I have to stop sharing for a moment. I just need to fix something here. I don't know if you guys are able to see this, but I see this. Just need to adjust this really quickly. Okay. So the next thing that took place is the wicked were saying, oh, God would not do this. God would not destroy his creation that he so lovingly made. Why would he do that? Why would he let his, people be destroyed just because they didn't get on a boat? And then, as Noah was giving this message to the world, he was doing something else. So we have here, we're going to draw a little frame of the ark being built. This is supposed to be the ark. And the first thing that he did was that he understood. He understood what was happening. And then he prepared. And he preached. Oops. Now, what was he preparing for? Well, he realized that judgment was coming, and in order for him to prepare, he had to gather his tools, and he got his hammers, and he started swinging his hammer and building this immense structure called the ark. Now, then what took place? Well, once the ark was finished, we all know the story. There was a door in the side of the ark, and all the little creatures started coming from all over the world. And they went up into the ark. Now, Noah was there, and he was still, and we'll draw a little Bible here. He was still giving this message. But all the people in the crowd, they weren't listening to it. They didn't want anything to do with it. He was telling them, get in the ark. I've built it. You don't even have to do anything at this point. All you have to do is walk inside of the boat. And they didn't want to do that. That was too uncomfortable for them in order to actually do this. Now, there's a lot of things that happen in this story that we're going to break down in a lot of detail. But it's really important to realize that when he heard, there was action that was taken. And especially since this is supposed to be an example for us at the end of the world. Now we'll go back to some of the slides. Genesis 7, 11, and 12. Now, we need to understand how long was this actually taking place. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month. So keep that in your mind. It's the second month, and it's the 17th day of the month. The same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So as soon as it started raining, 40 days and 40 nights, this was on the second month, the 17th day of the month. Now we read in Genesis 8, 14 to 17. And in the second month, on the 7 and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. So then Noah comes out of the ark. So again, we have the second month, and the 17th day. Then we have the earth being dried and them leaving the ark the second month again. But this time, it was the 27th day. What does this mean? So in the Bible, a biblical year is 360 days. 360 days. Now, it went from the 17th to the 27th, which is a 10-day difference. So it was 360 days plus 10, 370 days. I'm going to say in the ark. That is a very long time. Can you imagine now all the things that went into this? This starts adding up to a lot more preparation than maybe we thought before, because when you just think of Noah and the ark, it's Noah and he goes in the ark and there's a bunch of animals and they're in the ark for a little while. But when you really start to actually listen to the words that are being said, 370 days, that's 10 days more than a year. What were they doing for that amount of time? What did Noah have to do in order to prepare for this? Now, this is going to shift how we see this entire story. Because again, Noah was given specific commands on what he was supposed to do. This wasn't just happenstance. It wasn't just that he was caught unaware, no plan, no preparation, no acknowledgement of anything. No, he was given a prophecy that in 120 years, there would be a flood and judgments would come upon the earth. This was very serious. Now, here in Genesis 6:14, it says, "Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without." So he was told that, hey, you should make this out of gopher wood. Gopher wood is going to last hundreds of years without seeing decay. This is going to be the best quality. We'll get into this, but a lot of people who are preparing for some of the events coming, they're doing shoddy jobs. They're not doing quality jobs because they think, oh, it's just going to be a short amount of time. We don't have to worry about this. As long as it lasts 10 years, everything's going to be over within 10 years. That's not the example we get here with God in what he told Noah and how to prepare. Now, again, it says that there was rooms that he was supposed to make in the ark. This wasn't just any rooms. These were rooms to fit 5,000 to 8,000 different animals. This was a large undertaking. There's about roughly 1,400 different kinds of land animals that he would have had to take into the ark. And then some of them were 2x2, some were 7x7, which would, be anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 animals. Now, if we start asking the questions, well, how much are these guys eating and all of this? This is quite the feat. Genesis 6:15. "And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. So he was telling him what this is supposed to look like, how big it was supposed to be. Now, do you think let's go back one slide. Do you think if Noah decided, I only need 100 cubit boat, not 300, 100 is good enough for me. I only need 100 and maybe only 25 wide and probably 10 high. That's plenty. That's more than enough for, me and my family's needs. And, I just need to interrupt myself here. This is a live Bible study. If anybody has questions, make sure you put them in the chat, wherever it is. If it's down here, if it's on the sides. And I'm so excited about this topic. It's so fascinating to me. We have this incredible detail and all the little intricacies that happened in this story that are just glossed over by most people. And Jesus specifically said that there's things in there that we're going to need to deal with and that we're going to need to understand. So if you have any questions, we'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the study. So put them in the live chat and we'll try and answer those. Also, if you guys know anybody who you think will be benefited by the study today, please share it with them. Please share the link. Tell them to jump on now. It's not too late. And we are going to see some really fascinating things. Another little booklet that I'd really like to recommend is this one right here. This is the book Country Living. You can get this from Amazing Discoveries. This is a fantastic little resource. If you haven't read this book, you need to get and read this book. It has some really amazing things. Now, I do want to point out, and we're going to talk about this in an upcoming study, why does it seem when you read this book, as you're going through, the last thing that is said on the very last page, we're going to talk about this in another study. It says, the time is not far distant when we shall be forced to seek refuge in desolate and solitary places. This is a very interesting statement, and it's on the last page of the book. It is not far distant. Is that applicable for us today? Is it not? We're going to take a look because there's a lot of hidden gems in this booklet. Okay, Genesis 6:18 to 22. Now that we have this picture, there's so many details that we could talk about, and we're going to break this down piece by piece. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And every living thing of all flesh, two of every sort, shall bring into the ark, keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. Two of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so he did. So it wasn't just Noah who entered the ark and his family. There was a host of animals, 6,400 animals that came into the ark. What does this mean in our instance where we're talking about typology? Now, we can get into a lot of, well, I'm just going to keep going and we'll circle around back here. Acts 10:11. There's a very important thing we have to understand about this story. Now, this is the story of Peter, and saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending upon him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. Sounds almost like what we seen went into the ark. And he said unto them, and then he keeps going, and it says, God has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. So all these creatures represented types of men, different nationalities, different backgrounds of men. So when we look at this whole story, if you have your Bibles, please say amen in the chat. This is a Bible study. Open your Bible to Revelation 7. Okay, we're going to see something pretty amazing here. And I'm going to switch over back to my whiteboard for a second. I have another quote to read, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. Going to add some more detail in here. So we have this nice little boat here. Giant boat, I should say. It's not really a little boat. And inside, we have Noah. He's got a nice beard here. And we have all of his family. Okay? So we have Noah and his family, but also what we have in there is all these kinds of animals. I'm just going to write all kinds of animals. Okay? And roughly about 1,400 kinds. Now, we have a very interesting typology here because like we seen, Noah received a message. And what was that message? It was actually a heavenly message about the end of the world. It was an end of the world message. And he was giving it to all the people who should have known better, right? They should have known better. They should have known to listen. These people claimed to even know God, a lot of them. This was the end of the world. And there was going to be judgments coming. He had to prepare. Then he prepared not only for the people, but also for the animals. But we've seen here that the animals represent kinds of people. So what are we saying? If we look in Revelation chapter 7, and we're going to read this now in Revelation chapter 7. After these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on any sea, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Verse 4, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. 144,000. Okay? Now, these are from Israel. And Israel is supposed to know the things to come, also known as prophecy. Now here, if we continue down into verse 9, Revelation 7, verse 9, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number. So we have this here, the 144,000. Then we have this great multitude. That no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues. Great multitude of all kinds. So we have these 2 groups here. We have this special 144,000 of Israel, and these people have a special message. And that message and that group is found in Revelation chapter 14. So now we're going to write here, Revelation chapter 14. And it says about the 144,000 here. They have a special message, and it's called the 3 angels' messages. Okay? 3 a.m. 3 angels' messages. Okay? And this is given by the 144,000. And there's going to be a response. And who's it a response from? If we look in Revelation chapter 18, there's a very incredible thing we're going to see. And it says here, Revelation 18, verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So, given by the 144,000, saying, come out. It's a warning. Do not receive of the plagues. Now, this is a very important point, because what are the plagues? The plagues are judgments. And this was the exact same purpose of the flood. So Noah, in effect, he was like the 144,000. And then he, unfortunately, the rest of the people, which should have known better, the rest of Israel, why is there only 144,000 of Israel? There's way more than that. Only 144,000 of them get in the ark. And then all these animals, all these people of all the kindreds, nations, tongues, and people are going to respond to the message. Why? Because unfortunately, Israel did not respond to the message. And we read here in Isaiah 60, 1-7, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, and the Gentiles, these are all the other kindreds, nations, tongues, and people, shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. So even though Israel is going to have a tough time with the message, this great multitude of people, all the Gentiles, are going to come to thy light. Lift up thine eyes round about and see. All they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from afar, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. Now, what does sea represent in the Bible? Sea represents, in Revelation 17:15, sea represents people. Water represents people. So it says the abundance of the sea. So a great multitude of people shall be converted. It says the forces of the Gentiles. You don't even have to cross-reference to Revelation, because it says there, the forces of the Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? Unbelievers. The people who don't know the truth. Now, listen to this. The multitude of camels. So now we're seeing all these different animals, and this is all coming together because this is specifically talking about last day events. Shall cover thee. The dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba shall come. They shall bring golden incense, and they shall show forth the praise of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto thee. These specifically are the people of the east. Kedar and Midian, all these were the children of the east. This is even talking about the Muslim people as they see the events coming down and as they see the prophecies being fulfilled that we're talking about in this very series, the Final Countdown series. They will come to the light. The camels, the dromedaries, these people of the east are going to be gathered in. All these animals, all these kinds of people that we might think are unclean, that would never even respond to the message, are going to come into the message. It's incredible. He directed Noah to build an ark. and at the same time preach to the inhabitants of the world that God would bring the flood waters upon the earth to destroy the wicked. So at the same time that he was building the ark, he was to preach. He wasn't to preach and then he was to build, or build and then to preach. It was preaching and building together, because his growth process was a witness to the world. And we're going to see this in more detail. And we're going to circle back to all these different questions that we posed at the beginning, because all these are really important, especially for us in our time right now. Noah's light was to shine forth for 120 years amid the moral darkness of the people, who were uncompassed within a certain limit of years. Under Noah's direction, his carpenters built an ark, and they were impressed day by day with the unwavering faith, the unswerving integrity of the messenger of God. Every blow of the hammer, every advance that was made, was a warning to the world of the flood that swept away the unbelieving and ungodly. Noah's faith was a working faith. It was a saving faith that moved him with fear and led him to act in accordance with the word of God. This is the quality of faith that will save the soul. Is it yours? Every blow of the hammer, this made a huge difference on the people in the world, because it was an acting faith. They seen him doing what he was preaching. He said that there's a flood coming, and he acted on it. So they could witness that he actually believed what he was saying. But today, we say there's a flood coming, and God's probably going to just drop an ark out of the sky, and he's going to save me, put me in this miraculous little bubble. I don't have to do anything or think anything. Entirely unlike the story of Noah. He worked for 120 years swinging that hammer, and we think we can get away with 30 seconds. You know, when we see something coming, we just pray God's going to drop a shield down and we're going to be fine. No preparation required, no effort, no money, no sacrifice required. All we just do is we just believe, and that's all we need to do. Is that what Jesus meant by the lessons we need to learn in Noah's day? Now, before we continue here, let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians. Excuse me. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And we're going to read verse 11. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11. Now, all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So, that whole story of Noah has to do with you and me. These were actually examples for things that we're going to experience at the end of the world. Now, when you think about Noah, and you just pause for a minute, with all these animals that are with him in the ark, never mind the animals. If we just remove the animals for a minute, and we just think about, whoops, I lost my mic here. And we just think about Noah and his family. 8 people. They weren't on the ark for a day. They weren't on the ark for a week. They weren't on the ark for a month. They were on the ark for a little over a year. Why is that so relevant? Well, number one, they had to have water for an entire year. They had to have food for an entire year. It definitely would have been cold. They would have needed to be able to cook or heat or something for an entire year. What are they going to do about septic? What are they going to do about bathing? All of this had to be put thought into before just marching on the ark. They couldn't just assume that it was going to, okay, here's a big wooden boat and we're going to be fine for an entire year. There was a lot of very intricate thought that had to go into this. Now you extrapolate that out, and there's a very fascinating quote that I think many people have never seen before. The whole surface of the earth was changed at the flood. A third dreadful curse now rested upon it in consequence of man's transgression. The beautiful trees and shrubbery bearing flowers were destroyed. Yet Noah preserved seed and took it with him in the ark. So we're going to go back to the whiteboard here for a minute, because I don't know if everybody's really getting the weight of what we're seeing here. Okay, so we have this catastrophe that's going to come, and it's going to last 370 days. 370 days. Not only is this going to last 370 days, it's going to destroy the earth. So Noah going into this, he has to think not only for him. So we have 8 people, and we have roughly 6,000 animals. This is rough calculations. This isn't exact numbers. 8 people, 6,000 animals. Well, we need water for all these animals. How long can you live without water? 3 days. So you need water every single day. Let's just say that every day, on average, maybe, it was 1 liter. I apologize for all the Americans, to all the Americans. 1 liter per animal. Now, I realize that some animals are smaller, but some are a lot bigger. And 1 liter is not very much. Even for a baby animal, they're drinking more than 1 liter of milk in a day. So 1 liter per animal, well, that gives us a rough number of 6,000 liters per day. That's a lot of water. Now we times that by 370. And because I am not going to do long form math in front of everybody, we're going to do this with a calculator. And this would give us 2.2 million liters. That's a lot of water. Now, not only water, be good to have some food, over the course of 370 days. It might be good to, have a little bit of food. And it varies depending on the animal. But if we went and calculated that every animal's going to eat about 2% of their body weight. So about 2% their body weight. And let's say the rough figure, let's say maybe it's 50 pounds, an average for an animal. I mean, a baby cow is a lot more than that. A baby elephant is even more than that. And we're going to have, things on both sides. So 50 times 6,000, that would be, let's see here, a total of 50 animals times 6,000 animals is 300,000 pounds. And then we times that by 0.02 is 6,000 pounds per day. 6,000 pounds per day. Now, I mean, maybe this is way too high. Maybe he had all very tiny baby animals and it wasn't quite that much. But still, these are large numbers that we're working with. 6,000 pounds of food a day. Now, not only food, what about cleaning? Because all of these animals are going to the bathroom. All of these, we got to wash, we got to, all of this kind of stuff. We need a way to keep things sanitary. We're in this box for one whole year, little over an entire year. How are we going to do this without dying of E. coli or some other contaminant? We have to make sure that this thing is cleaned properly. And, maybe like the image we've seen before. So we have our ark here. And Noah was a smart guy, right? Maybe as the rain was dropping down onto the ark, maybe he had some gutters on the side and they had some piping jobs here that went, and in the top he had some nice storage tanks or something like this. So it's raining down, it's flowing, and then he's filling with fresh water in these storage tanks here. Maybe the technology was so good in that time. This is the ocean here. Maybe he could actually filter out of the ocean directly into the ark. Maybe he had a way to filter all of this and clean this. We don't know exactly what he did. What we do know is that it wasn't by happenstance that all of this took place. There's a reason it took him 120 years, and it's not because Noah was lazy. It's not because Noah was taking his sweet time. It's because he was planning this. And this wasn't an impossible feat. I mean, we have zoos today. We have apartment buildings, which is basically a giant apartment building on the water. It's a yacht. It's a cruise ship, if you will, right? It's basically like a giant cruise ship. And he's doing all of this incredible architecture here. And maybe he has, areas that feed the different animals here. And he's growing food. There's the windows and the top of the ark. Maybe there's ways that he's reflecting the light. Maybe he's creating light. We don't know exactly what he did, but whatever it was well thought out, because this was taking place, remember, for 370 days. You don't live for 370 days because you didn't put any effort or thought into it. And if this is any example for us now, we need to put thought into it. It took Noah 120 years. Why are we not willing to put in a little bit of effort in order to prepare? So it wasn't only that. Seeds. He had seeds on the ark. So he went around. I mean, the fact that you have garden seeds today is thanks to Noah. Literally, he went around and he knew this is all going to be destroyed. It's all going to be washed away. And most seeds don't do well if they're in an ocean for an entire year. Maybe a coconut, is fine. Maybe some other seeds are okay. Things like that, where they can, survive prolonged periods of time in water. But most of these seeds, they're not going to last. So he was really thinking ahead. So he was thinking, what's going to happen? I need to gather all these seeds. He was also thinking, okay, I have all these animals coming. What do I need to do? I need all their different food because they don't all eat the same. Maybe he went and was like, oh, the koala, they only eat eucalyptus leaves. So now I need to go and gather eucalyptus leaves, right? What about some other, maybe hummingbirds? All of these sort of things. He took the birds were in, everything, because they couldn't fly around for that long, and he had to gather flowers. Maybe he had to, whatever he needed to do. So he had his packing list, if we could call it. Noah's packing list. And he went down. And he said, okay, we're going to grab the bean seed. We're going to grab the peas. We're going to grab the radishes. We're going to grab the eucalyptus. We're going to grab the pine. We're going to grab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need, our water filtration. We need our water filtration. We need, probably some shovels is a good idea because, we got to move around bedding in the stalls. Maybe we need some, pitchforks. He had that. And wow, this is a big thing. We're probably going to need some wagons, some wagons to haul around. He probably used some of the animals like draft animals to even move the things all around the ark. So he, had, a yoke for some oxen, or he had some halters, maybe for horses, and he was helping them move around the food because, this is 6,000 pounds of food that he has to feed a day, and he needs to make that fairly efficient. Maybe from the top of the ark, he's like, okay, we're going to have this really nice plumbing system where it's going to feed into troughs that we have laid out for all the animals. And then all we have to do is open the valve and it's going to fill their troughs with water. Okay? So not so much work now. We don't have to worry about that. Maybe he went and, in the floor of the ark. Here's the ark. Here's Noah. He had some trap doors in the floor, with some troughs underneath. And maybe he took and threw the food and it dropped down and filled here. So he just walked along. Maybe he had his, his nice little wagon here. And he had his animals, whatever they were, hauling this around. and he was dropping off all the food for all the animals. This was not 5 minutes of prep. This was not just, okay, Lord, I heard you. I'm going to go around and I'm going to warn everyone. Oops. My finger is drawing instead of moving. There we go. So Noah didn't get the message and just decide, you know what? I'm going to start yelling out and warning and doing nothing. Is that what he did? What would have happened if Noah didn't prepare? What if he didn't prepare? I'm going to write this question here. I think the story would have ended very differently. What if he didn't prepare for all that was going to happen? What if he said, this is a pretty big boat and I still have to live, right? I still have to, take my vacations and do everything else. I can't really afford a boat like that, right? And he starts, he's doing his finances here. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to be in the red like $1 million if I do this boat. What am I going to do? Well, God said to do it. And so he just did. And Noah took literally all the money that he had and put it into this boat. He didn't hold back. Why? Because if the whole earth was going to be destroyed, he would rather serve God and be broke, doing what God said, than having everything, because he believed the prophecies, right? Do we believe the prophecies? I don't really think that, a lot of us do believe the prophecies as we should. We're definitely not taking Noah's recommendations to prepare. He took 120 years to make sure that everything was set up. He traveled around. He gathered seeds so that today we can even have a garden and all these things. Why are we so almost lackadaisical when it comes to some of these things? Noah preserved seed and took it with him in the ark. This is a very incredible concept. Well, giving his warning message, and remember, we have to bring this back to our situation now. And we talked, over the past couple weeks about how we can be ready for their next move. What is the game plan? What's their next plan? Well, giving his warning message, his faith was perfected and made evident. An example of believing just what God says. All that he possessed, he invested in the ark. Did he hold back anything? He's like, no, I can't let that go. No, it says all that he possessed, everything he possessed, he invested into the ark. As he began to construct that immense boat, multitudes came from every direction to see the strange sight and to hear the earnest words of the preacher. So because he was saying that he was doing this, people gravitated to his message. Why? Because they seen that he acted upon it. I'm going to go back to the whiteboard for a minute. You know, sometimes I think a lot of people, I'm going to draw, this is a city, okay? With all sorts of buildings in it. Well, who's going to minister to the people in the city? And we're going to cover this in another study. If, you know, everybody's running out to the country, okay, we're going to draw a nice tree here and a creek. So if everybody's going to the country, who's going to minister? What did Noah do? His preparation was his witness. If we honored God and we moved and we did these actions and we pronounced it loudly, because here's the thing, we read the three angels' message, which is in Revelation chapter 14, is supposed to be given with a loud cry. This isn't a quiet thing. Is this you running into the bush to hide? Is that the point of this? Is that the point of, you know, talking about country living and getting ready for the end events? And by end events, we're talking about this very important thing called no buy, no sell. This is in Revelation 13, verse 17. And if Noah's story is anything that we should be concerned with, this right here is something that we need to prepare for. It's not something to just ignore. It's like the flood. But this is the most devastating thing that is ever going to happen to the earth. What is going to happen at the end of the earth? So who's going to witness to the city? Well, it says that when Noah was doing this, every blow of the hammer was a sermon. And the same thing, if you are preparing and you are pronouncing your preparation, then people will see. They will see a difference. Wow, what is that person doing? Why are they doing this? Oh, this is so interesting. So I'll give you an example. So I've been on this, what I would call country living journey. Okay? Country living journey for a long time. And trying to figure out the big question: how to survive no buy, no sell. This has been one of my lifelong searches that I've been trying to figure out. This isn't just a simple question. If you can't buy or sell, now just like Noah, God warns ahead of time of things that haven't happened yet. Did Noah just sit back, say, well, I'll give some sermons, I'll go to the city and I'll preach? But then when the people come to Noah and say, hey, the flood's coming, what do we do? And Noah says, oh, you just like tell people that a flood's coming, which is what a lot of Adventists are doing right now. This is what they're doing. They're proclaiming very loudly, Sunday law is coming. And what are they doing about it? Are they teaching the people? Are they showing them how to practically do this? Do they have an ark themselves, antitypical ark? Have they done any sort of preparation for this event? Or are they just saying this event is going to happen, but their works don't follow their faith? And we need faith and works. Because if not, then we are dead. Faith without works is dead. And God's people, if we do not prepare, we will take the mark of the beast. Why? Because there's no other option. There's no other option in order to survive unless we take the mark of the beast. So here's the timeline again. Let's look at this. Let's break this down. We need to see exactly what did Noah do and what are we doing here? So again, we have Noah. Okay? And he receives this message of warning. He receives a message of warning that judgment on the wicked world, because it was wicked, is coming. And that also, not just that, he must prepare. What's the next thing? He starts preparing, right? He starts swinging his hammer. He perceives, he prepares, and he preaches. Okay? The 3 P's. He perceives, he prepares, and he preaches. And those 3 things is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. If we're supposed to heed what's happening here, we need to perceive, preach, and prepare all at the same time. Now, he did this for how long? 120 years. What was he doing? He was building. He was gathering. He was planning. He was doing so many things. Then what happened? What's the next thing that happened? There was a final warning, right? Here's the ark. The final warning that he was giving to everyone: get on the ark, get in the boat. Why? Because judgment is coming. Here's the sad part. What happened next? Oops. The door was shut. What did that mean? When that door shut that day, what did that mean for everybody outside the ark? Was anybody safe outside the ark? They weren't safe outside the ark. Then we have the ark here. Again. And it's tossed around by the sea. And there's these giant waves that are trying to capsize this ship, this storm that is just torrential rain and wind and trying to destroy this. And anyone outside the ark was not safe. But those inside the ark were safe. Now, how does that coincide with our example? In 1844, there was a message of judgment. That was when the message of judgment started. And then in 1888, and we're going to go over this in another study, why this is the case. Out of the cities. That's why I referenced that quote on the last page. It says the time is not far distant. Why would that be the last statement said? Because if we go just a little ways before this, out of the cities, this is the message the Lord has been giving me. But the last page says the time is not far distant. But then the page before says out of the cities is now. There's an important key that we're missing here, and we need to study this. So out of the cities, 1888 was that call. This was what is known as the first siege. And we're going to see the second siege. But the problem is, just saying the second siege is coming isn't enough. We have to make the people ready. We have to have an ark prepared. If there is no ark, there is no salvation. If there is no preparation, if there is no obedience, if there is no action taken, we're going to be swept away in the storm. Now, during this time here, how long has it been since 1888? It's been 137 years. The sad thing is we've had longer than Noah in order to get ready. We should have been building. We should have been planting. We should have been planning. But we're not. We're sitting back. We're saying Sunday law is coming. We're so excited. Let's get this thing over with. Do you really think you're ready to face Sunday law? Do you think you're really ready to face no buy, no sell? If it happened tomorrow, would you be ready? We need to perceive, prepare, and preach, just like Noah did. Now, if we continue, there's a special thing in Revelation 18, verse 4. And this is the final loud cry. And it's the message of final warning. This is the call to all the rest of the people, get in the ark. Not to Israel. Israel has already had her time at this point, and we're going to be going through the detailed events of this throughout all the course of these studies. This is the final warning. Come out of her. Do not partake of her sins. Don't receive the mark of the beast. How do you not receive the mark of the beast? You're in the ark. You're safe from all the storm that's happening outside. Then what happens? The close of probation. The door is shut. The door is shut to the most holy place. And then what takes place after probation closes? The 7 last plagues. And I know people think, oh, once the 7 last plagues start, God's people just flee into the wilderness and we just rely on him. It's all over. Where was Noah during the whole storm? After the door shut, he was in the ark. He was still in the ark. We're going to be all the way from here, all the way through, right up until here. This is when we flee into the mountains. Before then, we are on our country property. We are growing our own food. We have our own water. We have our own heat. We have all the things that we need in order to sustain ourselves in our ark. We're in our ark that God has warned us to prepare and to make. The same sort of things that Noah had to think about when he was entering the ark, we have to do in preparation for what we know is coming. We have an exact same flow of events here. So what does this look like? We're here. That's today, 2025. Then there's going to be a no buy, no sell. And what's going to happen after that? We have to raise our own provisions from here on out. We have to raise our own provisions. We're going to see a lot of things. This is close of probation, by the way, close of probation. And then the 7 last plagues are going to fall after the close of probation. But during this time of raising our own produce, we are giving the loud cry to the world. And we're calling all the animals to enter in the ark with us. We have this typology. We have the ark, and we have our country property. The ark was self-sufficient. It was self-sufficient. And so does the country property need to be. It had the food. It had water. It had all the systems set up. We need the same thing on the country property, which means it's not an instant thing. Also, Noah must have had to study each of the animals that he was going to be dealing with to understand what they ate, because if he only took hay, not all the animals would have survived. So he needed to make sure that he understood the protocol. No buy, no sell. This is our catastrophe that we need to build our ark for. And here's the same questions we need to be asking. How much food? How will we grow it? And these are two of the most important questions that we have to ask. And I'm going on for quite long, but I think this is really, really important. I have some more slides still I need to get to. If we want to avoid receiving the mark of the beast, because Revelation 17, if you have your Bibles, go to Revelation 13. Revelation 13. Revelation 13:17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. So if we don't have the mark, no mark equals no buy, no sell. And this isn't going to be for a day or for a week. Anybody cannot buy for a day. This is going to be the hardest test that God's people have ever gone through. No buying, no selling. This is going to be the final test. Now, you're not just going to not receive the mark of the beast because you're sitting in the forest. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? Noah couldn't just jump in a boat and have made it. No, he had to understand the critical details about the task. It couldn't only be about him. There was only 8 of him and his family, and he prepared for all the other animals. This was a selfless act. He was thinking about us. He was collecting the seeds. He was doing all these things. He was thinking about what's going to happen. We have to do the same. If this is to save ourselves, we're on the wrong thing. This is a witness to the world. This is living for Jesus. This is having faith in the prophecies and works that match what we're saying. And I know it's crazy because a lot of people can't believe even what I'm saying. They think God's gonna just save you. But that's not what we see in the Bible. We studied this over the last 2 lessons. We showed that the bread and water sure only happens during the time of the plagues, and the no buy, no sell happens before the time of the plagues. We've seen that purely from the Bible, just from the Bible. Now, how do we navigate this? We have to ask the same questions that Noah did. And there's a lot of things that go along with this. We discussed already. How many calories? So we took a look at this. The average person, let's just say at 150 pounds, you add a 0, and that's basically your basal metabolic rate, which means your rate at rest, just so you don't die, that would be 1,500 calories a day just to function resting, not to actually do work like preach the loud cry or grow your food or anything like that, just to rest. And what does that look like? Well, that's going to give you about 2,000 pounds, roughly 2,000 pounds of food. That's going to be 1,500 calories. And it has to be split between your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. Because we can't just go about this happenstance. We have to put thought and we have to put effort and we have to consider these things. Now, we've also mentioned this before. It takes an average of 1 acre, that's growing land, growing garden, to feed one person. For 1 year. And I'm suspecting that this will be years long. This isn't going to be a short thing. This is going to try to wear out the saints. We're preaching the entire world. This is a swell that's going to go from country to country to country. This is a process. The original Three Angels message, it was a 7-year process to do that, from first to third. So if we think we're going to, in one night, convict the whole world, then I think we're mistaken. 1 year, 1 acre is enough land to grow food for one person. So if you have 4 people in your family, that equals 4 acres of garden. And again, like I mentioned before, and I'm just going to swipe over here, we're going to break this down from broke to country. Because this is what everybody wants to know. I don't have money. I can't afford this. I can't afford, so many acres. I can barely afford half an acre. How am I supposed to do this? And this isn't possible. I've never gardened in my entire life. I've never done any of these things. That's okay. I don't think Noah was a master carpenter and a zoologist and all the other things, and a sanitary specialist, and all the other things that plumber, electrician, whatever they did in the ark. But God has a promise that the people in the last days will learn in a few months what it took others years to learn. And that's why we're doing these studies, because I'm trying to share so that you in a few months can learn what it took me years to learn. How to grow food and how to sustain yourself and how to actually do this, because it is doable. I don't want anybody coming and saying, I can't do this. It's not possible. Yes, it's possible. It's 100% possible, or else God wouldn't ask you to do it. God couldn't put us through this if it wasn't possible. If it wasn't possible for Noah to build that ark, God could not have asked him to do it. But it was possible. And some people think, oh, and I'm going to get back to this in a second. Let me zoom out for a second right here. It's too late to move to the country. When did you get a vision that was so? And I'm just being straight, because this really concerns me, because I care about everybody that's listening right now. This is not true. This is absolutely not true. Absolutely emphatically false. And if you think it is too late for you to prepare, it's not true. It's not too late for you to prepare. If you are living, if you are breathing, it is not too late for you to prepare. If Sunday law is not here right now, full force, no buy, no sell, you can't buy a property, you can't do anything, you can't move, you can't get out of the city, it's not too late. The fact that you can go on vacation right now, it's not too late. So let's get that out of the way. It's not too late. Now we need to take a lot of these things in consideration. Noah had a lot of pre-thought. What were the animals coming? What were all the things that we have to consider? And he planned for this. We have to plan for this too. We have to get the skills. I know for a fact Noah probably went and talked to guys who were good with all the animals. He learned from them. He said, you know what? This is more important than anything I will ever do in my entire life. Everything I have, everything I possess is going into the ark. We need to have the same passion and drive. All we have into our ark. If it takes every last penny, that's what we need to do. And it might take a process. It might be a process to do this. It's absolutely a process. It's a process with basically everybody, unless you're a millionaire and you can just go and buy a property that's ready for you right now and has everything you ever wanted and it's all set up and you have all the skills. Skills is another thing that is critical. You need to know beforehand. Noah couldn't figure out that koalas ate eucalyptus just when he got on the ark. He had to know that beforehand. So he was doing due diligence. This was his whole being was absorbed in warning the world and telling them how to be ready for it. And that's exactly what we're doing sitting down right now, is we're trying to warn the world and show how to be ready for what's coming. I really hope that everybody appreciates this thought, because it's really serious. I don't think we fully understand how serious this time is actually going to be. It's going to be the most serious time that God's people have ever witnessed. Many at first appeared to receive the warning, yet they did not turn to God with true repentance. So people at first seen, yes, Sunday law's coming. Oh, yeah, let's do something. Overcome by the prevailing unbelief, they finally joined their former association in rejecting the solemn message. Some were convicted and would have heeded the warning, but there were so many to ridicule that they partook of the same spirit, resisted the invitations of mercy, and were soon among the most defiant scoffers. None go to such lengths in sin as do those who have once had light but have resisted the convicting Spirit of God. The men of that generation were not all idolaters. Many professed to be worshippers of God. They claimed that their idols were representations of the deity and that through them the people could obtain a clear conception of the divine being. This class, who professed to worship God, were foremost in rejecting the preaching of Noah. And they finally declared that the divine law was no longer in force, that it was contrary to the character of God to punish transgression. Their minds had become so blinded by rejection of light that they really believed Noah's message to be a delusion. And that's what a lot of people think. This is a delusion. Why are you trying to save yourself? Don't save yourself. God will save you. You can put yourself outside the ark. It's fine. What if people heard Noah in that day and said, well, Noah, you're already half done your ark. There's no way I can get ready. We'll circle back around to this question. In that time before the flood, as in this, there were two classes, the righteous and the wicked. Enoch and others walked with God in uprightness. But the great majority of the inhabitants of the earth were given over to iniquity, and their wickedness rose before God. God gave direction that an ark was to be built for those who desired to be saved from the coming destruction. If you want to be saved from the coming destruction, you're going to have to build an ark. Jesus said so. In 1 Corinthians, these are examples for us, not just for Noah. If you want to be saved, if I want to be saved, if we want to be involved with the people giving the loud cry, saved from the destructions coming, we need to get ready. We need to not be squandering. There's no point to understanding prophecy if you can't do anything about it. There's no reason to say, hey, there's a train coming on the train tracks. Oh, thanks. I'll just get hit and then I'll know that you were right. No, it's so that you can get off, get out of the way, get ready for what's coming. Prophecy, foretelling of what's to come, is so that you can do something about it, so that your faith becomes an action, becomes a verb. Prophecy is an action word. It's not a noun. It's not just knowledge. It's not just ethereal. It's not just to say, I was right. It is to give you time to take action. God gave direction that an ark was to be built for those who desired to be saved from the coming destruction. He was about to speak in determined language against the wickedness that had grown to fearful proportions. He was about to clothe himself with vengeance and execute his judgment against the transgressors of his law. If that doesn't sound exactly like what we're going to see in these last days, God's judgment coming on those who are breaking his law, those who made an idol Sabbath, those who, it says, blaspheme his law. He's going to have the plagues. Revelation 16. Actually, let's do 14. Revelation 14 and verse 9. This is the third angel's message. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice. That's why we're doing this study right now. If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. How do we not receive the mark of the beast? How to not receive. Need to lift this again. Mark of the beast. How do we do this? We prepare. We heed the warning. In other words, we believe the prophecy. If we don't take action, do we really believe anything's happening? If Lot heard that Sodom was going to be destroyed and he took no action and he never left at all, he'd be destroyed right there. If Noah heard a flood's coming and he never built the ark, he would have been destroyed. Not only would he have died, he would have lost his salvation. So a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm going to be in the city. I'm going to die a martyr. I'm going to do this. I'm going to die in the city. when the destruction comes on the cities. Unless you can show me one Bible verse or quote that says that that's an option, it's not an option. It literally says in Genesis that Noah prepared an ark for the saving of his house and all the animals alive. It doesn't say he's going to build an ark and kill them all. I'm sorry I'm being graphic, but I want to get this point across that if there's no food on the grocery store shelf tomorrow, are you okay? Would you be fine? If you heard the supply chain's down, there's no more food, are you going to be fine? This doesn't even have to get to the no buy, no sell. This could be some catastrophe like the dirty 30s. I don't know how many of you even remember this. There's something called the Great Depression. And there was like no food. People in the cities were starving, but the people in the country had food. Why? Why did the people in the country have food? Because they could grow their veggies. That's why. They had their gardens. God knows what's going to happen before it happens. He has the playbook. He writes the playbook. Now, if you're saying, well, I'm poor, I get it. I get it. And we're going to talk about this in detail, but let me give just a couple thoughts. You're poor right now, and you're living here in this apartment building, and you're paying rent, right? You have rent to pay, and you don't have any money. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to get in your car. Maybe you don't have a car. That's okay. And you're going to find this little house right here, just like the one I'm drawing. And it's in the country. And it is a spot here for you to plant a little garden. Now, it's not yours, but you have a spot to rent, and you're learning how to do this. You're learning how to grow. You're getting familiar with country settings. You're in this place, and now you're going to go find others. And you're going to start talking. And they're going to teach you stuff. And they're going to show you how to country. Okay? And this is a shameless plug for our YouTube channel called How to Country. If you haven't already, go to How to Country, and we are putting things together to show you how to do this. Also, farm.amazingdiscoveries.org, we have an apprenticeship program. You can come here. We're also working on courses, working on booklets, working on all these things as fast as we humanly possibly can. And I really mean that, to try and get you guys ready. Put yourself in situations. This is more important than anything else you're going to do in your entire life, because it is your entire life. It is your end goal. It is your message. This is what Seventh-day Adventists were put in the world to do, is give the three angels' message to the world. And the three angels' message has to do with the mark of the beast and preparing for it. If you have health problems, if you're disabled, if you're older, any one of these things, you pray like you've never prayed before. And God will listen. You do everything you can think of. If you have no idea what to do, you pray more and you think more. You don't think, "Ah, I can't come up with something. There's nothing I can do. I'm lost. I'm whatever." No, you're not. Do you think that Noah would have left out someone outside the ark? Do you think God would have just said, "Oh, they couldn't get there"? He would have made a way for everyone who wanted to get in the ark. Do you think there was someone outside who actually wanted inside? No, this is not the thing. God will make a way for every single person to be in that situation. Noah built the ark. The animals came in. His family came in. We call it Noah's ark, not Noah's son's ark or Noah's son's wife's ark. It was Noah's ark, but his sons and his family came inside. The animals came inside. Maybe you can help someone. Maybe you can be with someone. Maybe you can, all of these things. We need to be thinking as not selfish, but externally and say, Lord, I'm giving everything I have to this cause. I will do whatever is necessary. I should probably stop here for now and we'll go to some questions before it gets too late because we've already been going for an hour and 45 minutes. Okay. For a long time. We're going to take some questions now. Okay. Julie, just sweet. And again, I apologize ahead of time for all the names I can't pronounce. This wasn't one of my gifts. Spelling and pronunciation of names was not the gifts that were given to me. That is definitely someone else's gift. Question: how did you come up with the number 6,400 animals in the ark? That's kind of a rough estimate, but basically there's 1,400 different kinds. And if you just look this up, not species, there's a lot more. But if we go by genera, then there is about 1,400 kinds of genus of land animals on the earth. And then if there was 2x2 and some 7x7, we can multiply that out and we get roughly about that number, anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 or 8,000. It's not super exact, but we have a rough idea. A lot of people do consider 6,400 to be kind of a rough, good estimate of the amount of animals that he would have had on the ark. So because it says he took 2 of the unclean and 7 of the clean kind of animals, and we know how many kinds there are. He didn't need to take 10 different kinds of dogs, a wolf, a fox, and everything else. He just needed one from the canine family, and those can be bred out to all the different canines that we have today. Okay. Candy M. Question: is it possible that God caused the animals to hibernate and just awake a few days or weeks before the door was to be opened? Well, the problem with that thought is that's not what is said. What was said is that Noah prepared that, and even then, it would have to be something that's entirely supernatural for that to take place, because no animal is hibernating that long. I mean, they'll hibernate through a winter, but they're not going to hibernate for 370 days. And still, the air circulation, all the things that need to happen, a lot of them still have sanitary things that happen. Even while hibernating, there's a lot of different things that would play into that. Sure, maybe they'll be sleeping more if it's darker. Maybe, if there's a storm. But again, we know that he was thinking ahead and he was actually preparing all these things for that. And it took a considerable amount of effort. Now, once the animals even left the ark, the vegetation all hadn't grown back yet. So he was feeding for a little while after even then. That's why they were allowed to take some of the clean animals to sacrifice and to eat, because there was so little food on the earth and needed time to actually regenerate. Okay. Michelle Macklin, question: what about when the government takes away our property or come and take our goods? We should clip this and make a short out of this. So this question here: what about when the government takes away our property or comes to take away our goods? Okay, back to the whiteboard. We're going to answer this once and for all, and we're going to lay this to rest. And we're going to come back to in other studies, but I mean for tonight. Okay, so we have our nice little property here, okay? And over here we have our nice garden. We have our house. And then we have whatever different areas. You know, we have this fence over here, whatever we're doing. Maybe we have a nice little orchard, and there's a creek running through our property here, okay, etc. So here's our property. Now, here comes the WEF, dun dun dun, and they say, "Oh, hi, mister. You're going to own nothing, and you're going to be super, super happy." Is this something that plays into the no buy, no sell? I could try and give a short answer here. I'm going to give a long one, but I'll give a short one first. The quick answer is this: it does not apply. Okay? That's the short answer. Why? Because the New World Order is going to happen after the no buy, no sell. And we'll take a look at this really briefly. We'll probably do an entire study on this, though. So own nothing and be happy. The other reason it doesn't apply is because we've been told to prepare. We've been told to get out of the cities into the country. We've been told all of these things. Let me read from page 9 in this little booklet here. I believe it's page 9. Again and again, the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country where they can raise their own provisions. For in the future, the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. But there's actually no reason to do it, because you'll own nothing and be happy. They'll take your land, and since you can't pay your taxes, they'll take your property, and there's no reason to prepare anyways. That would make absolutely no sense. The other thing is, when the storm was happening and the rain started falling, all the people outside the ark, where did they want? They wanted inside the ark. Were they able to get inside? No. Why? Because God protected it. Not because they didn't have big enough tools, not because they couldn't tear a hole in the side of the ark to get into it, not because they couldn't open the door. God had his hand, because when you're obedient, he protects. He honors your obedience. Okay, so how do we know when this is coming? NWO, New World Order. When is the New World Order coming? Let's go to Revelation chapter 17. Okay, Revelation chapter 17. I hope you have your Bibles. I hope you're staying awake this long if you're on the East Coast, Revelation 17. And we are going to go to verse 12. We're going to start at verse 12 forward. And it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings." So we have 10 kings, which are regions. Oops, I apologize for that really messy writing. Sometimes my writing gets messy because there's actually a couple second delay when I write with the pen to when it shows up for me, since I'm screen sharing. 10 kings. This is 10 regions of the New World Order, which have received no kingdom as yet. So this is not something yet, but it will happen. But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So these 10 kings with the beast. Now, how long is 1 hour? It says 1 hour. And according to Ezekiel 4 verse 6, that 1 hour would equal 15 days. Okay? 15 days. Verse 13, "These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." Now, we have something else in the very next chapter. And it says here in Revelation 18, verse 8. This is a very in-depth study here. 18, verse 8. We're going to have to get into this in a whole nother study. Revelation 18, verse 8. It says the plagues. Oops, I missed an E. Plagues come in 1 day, which equals a year, according to Ezekiel 4 verse 6. So the plagues are 1 day, but then there's these 10 kings that reign 1 hour with the beast. If we keep going down here, it says in verse, let me just find it quickly here. Verse 10, "Stand afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come." So this 1 hour, after it, her judgment comes. And what is the judgment? Go back to Revelation 17, verse 16. Revelation 17, verse 16. "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." So this is the judgment that is coming. So here's what it looks like. Here's the full timeline of events. And again, we're going to go through this in plenty of detail. You're going to have all the quotes. If you haven't already, go to the first study and please start going through. So we are here. Then we have no buy, no sell. Then we have the close of probation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plagues. And right at the ending of the judgment time, right here, for 15 days, this is the New World Order. These 10 kings reigning with the beast, this one world government, this one world system. And we're going to go into this in a lot of detail. It's absolutely incredible what's going to happen here. So, no buy, no sell. During that time, we need to grow our food on our self-sufficient property. Close of probation happens. We're still doing this. Once this New World Order kicks into place, then there's something called the death decree. If you do not take the mark of the beast, you will receive a death decree. And that is when we flee into the mountains. At the end of these 15 days, it's all over. What happens? The beast is destroyed. So, what does this mean? This whole, you're going to lose your property during Sunday law, during the no buy, no sell, not going to happen. We are going to be in our ark. This is the ark time frame going through here. We are safe in the ark. We are growing our food. We are living self-sustainable. That didn't write properly. Sustainable. Okay. If it's not readable, that's okay. Self-sustainably through this time, and this whole, they're going to take our property, New World Order, you'll own nothing and be happy. That happens right over here. But here's the thing. We read about this. We studied this a couple lessons ago when we were looking at the whole time frame here of when God's people are going to be fleeing into the wilderness. Let me just let's go to the book of, let's see here, Isaiah 33. 33? Isaiah 33. Okay, Isaiah 33, verse 2. O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation also in the time of trouble. Now, the time of trouble is after Michael stands up and a time of trouble commences. That's Daniel 12, verse 1. Then we go down, Isaiah 33, verse 16. He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His water shall be sure. So when this own nothing and be happy actually gets enforced, we're going to flee our properties anyways. They're going to be of no use to us. We're going to be fleeing into the wilderness, and God is going to give us water. He's going to feed us with ravens, angels, and manna, just like the children of Israel in the wilderness. But until that point, we have to be on our anti-typical ark. We have to be doing the work that God asks us to do. And if we're just presumptuously living, then we're not going to be ready if that's what we think we're going to do, is not prepare. Okay. Let's see. Thank you for the question. Unknown question. Does not taking the mark automatically mean that you receive the seal of God? Well, here's the thing. If there's going to be only two sides. Either you have the mark or you have the seal. Those are the two options. Either you break God's law, and we talked about this before. What is the mark of the beast? If you haven't seen that study, go back to the previous Final Countdown study, and we talk about the mark of the beast and the seal of God. You're going to have two choices. Either you prepare to be sealed by taking action. This changes your character. This changes your personality. This changes your whole being. This isn't just about putting food in your mouth. This is about being ready. This is about being obedient. And when we're obedient, it changes us. It makes us humble. This isn't a pride thing. This needs to get out of our minds. We either receive the seal of God or the mark of the beast. There's not receiving either one. You can't refuse the mark and not receive the seal of God. It's either you have the mark of the beast or the seal of God. There's only two groups. And actually, there's a really good quote in the Spirit of Prophecy that says there's two groups. Just like at the end of the world, we read actually a quote that said in Noah's day, there was only two groups as well of people. Those who honored and believed God and had faith in the prophecy, and those that did not. And that's the main difference is you show that you believe God by preparing. If you didn't prepare, you really didn't believe God, and you didn't actually think it was a big deal. And you're willing to take the mark of the beast, even though for now you might think that you're not willing to do that, but you're not preparing to actually stand up against that hard test. Okay. Gina Rissner question. What should we have in our bug out bag if we currently do not have a country property? That's a great question. I would say there's a few things you need to have in your bug out bag. And one of them is realtor.com and start looking for a country property. I think it's good for people to be ready for something happening in the city. Before I was in the country again, because I started in the country a little bit and then I went into the city and then was praying for a way to come out of again. I had a bug out bag. It was a backpack with a bunch of survival stuff. Add water, filtration, like Life Straw. That's a great thing. Some knives, just, if you need anything. Had solar and wind up flashlights, had water tablets, had a paracord, all sorts of things like that. I would definitely always have seeds. Some seeds are very small. It doesn't take a lot, but I think seeds are really important to have. And actually, that's something that we're going to work on here, having available that people can get open pollinated heirloom seeds, because we have the farm here. We grow all of that. We actually don't use hybrid seeds because we want everything to be no buy, no sell ready. We actually only have 25 plants in the entire 6-acre garden that are hybrid, because some people like the long English cucumbers, and we just grow those just for those people. But everything else is open pollinated heirloom and seeds that we're growing and saving. So I would definitely have some of those things in your bug out bag, but start looking, start transitioning, go from this is the flow that I think everybody should be looking at. You should go from city to smaller city. Now, some people can switch over way faster than this. Okay, to town. Maybe you can go from city straight to town. You know, um, this is just a progression that is totally doable, and nobody needs to panic. Like, oh, it's too late. No, it's not too late. But you do need to make haste. You don't want to be slack about this. So, to a town, and then um, to a nice little country property, and then eventually you want to be in a property in slash around mountains. Okay, and this it glitched out again because I wrote too fast. And some people say, well, mountains isn't literal and this and that. This is why Miller's rules are so important. If you haven't, go look at our Judgment Day study series, 14-part Judgment Day study series. This is Miller's rules. These are super, super important for everybody to understand. And this gives you the principles on when to know that a word is figurative or literal. And from my understanding, mountains is a very literal term. So you can make this transition. And even what I would do, if I was doing this all over again, I would basically do what I did, which was go learn from people doing the thing. Okay? Whatever that thing is, whether it's growing food, whether it's greenhousing, whether it's root cellaring, whether it's canning, whether it's preserving, whether it's draft animals, whatever it might be, go to someone that's doing that thing, whoever it is. If it's someone close to you in your area, then great. If you have to move to do that, then great. If you have to travel half the country to find that, then great. It's worth it. You take that as your vacation and you go learn from people. Or maybe you quit your job. Maybe you go and spend a year. Say, hey, can I come? I'll work from room and board, and I want to learn everything there is to do about country living. I want to do this. That's what I did. I did this for months and months at a time. I would go and live with people for 3 months at a time, and I would just help them do what needed to be done. Be willing, learn from them, ask questions. People want to answer questions. Most people who see that someone is actually eager to learn and they're listening and respecting them and not just trying to argue and show that they're smart or something, they're willing to share and they're willing to teach. When I was learning about greenhouses, I went and worked with someone who's doing greenhouses. When I wanted to learn about market gardening, I worked at a market garden. When I wanted to learn about how to draft animals and oxen, I went to people doing oxen. I drove to them. I did whatever I needed to do to learn those skills. And that's something that everybody is going to need to use their own investment time and money in order to learn those skills. And that is part of this lesson. It's like the rich young ruler. I'm doing all the things. I have all the virtues. Then go and sell and follow me. Go sell your house, go sell your car, go sell your boat, go sell all those things and put it in a country property. Oh, that's asking too much. Maybe you don't have anything to sell, and that's okay too. That you're starting from scratch. You don't have anything to get rid of. But go learn from people doing the thing. That is a really, really important part of this. Okay. I hope I answered your question, but what kind of things would be in the bug out bag? Um, I would definitely say, just to make a small list, a knife. Um, I don't actually know how to spell paracord. Paracord, I would have like a wind up light, maybe like a solar charger. Um, I would have a life straw, water filter tablets. I would maybe start if you have a dehydrator or buy dehydrator, you can make your own um, MREs, meals ready to eat, of anything that's just dehydrated. That's fantastic. Or freeze dryer. You can make these and then you have them. Even if you're doing country living and you want to preserve some of your food for the winter time, make yourself this. Just dry it. Whatever you're doing, dehydrate it, freeze dry it, and then you have that for wintertime. If you want to have, lemons, if you want to have, guacamole in uh the no buy no sell and you don't have avocado trees, make some freeze dried guacamole. Thank you for your question. Okay. uh Kalido question: if we live in Florida, how can we flee to mountains or other states with no mountains? Does it mean wilderness? So, and I'm going to be very straight because I want people to really be ready. I don't want um I don't want people saying that, I didn't tell them what was needed to be said. And I apologize for my poor drawing of the United States here, but this is my drawing and this is Florida. Florida is gigantic on my map here. Very not to proportion. I personally don't think that anything inside of here is very habitable for country living. If you're on the coast, this is bad news. You don't want to be on the coast. You need to really analyze the location here. Now, think of Abraham, okay? He had to change countries. And maybe if you're in a country that doesn't have any country living and mountains and things, you need to change countries. Now, America is larger than several countries. Canada is next level as well with that. But you need to be finding a place with the proper criteria. And actually, we're going to do an entire study on this, but criteria for location. And there's a lot of stipulations and it has to check it off. Noah couldn't have been like, okay, well, I got 90% of the ark together. No, he needed 100% of the ark to work. So, what are these criteria for location? Well, it says no interference of enemies. It needs to have houses not close together. It needs to have land. Oop, I had a delay there on my board. Land enough to sustain. It has to have the 3 pillars. These are my 3 pillars. It has to have land, water, and wood. These are the 3 pillars of a country property. And you need to be, we'll put a dot by each of these. And we'll talk about this. 3 hours from a city, a large city. Okay? You need to be 3 hours from a large city. And a large city is 100,000 and up. I know that sounds crazy. 3 hours from a large city. You need to be near mountains. There's a lot of details, and I'll show all the Bible references and quotes for all of this and some other studies that we don't have time for tonight. But these are some things that everybody needs to be thinking about. And if you have to change states, you might have to change states. This is life or death. This is seal of God or mark of the beast. This is the final crisis, the most awful time that has ever been in the world. And it's going to take massive change. I moved over 2,000 kilometers because I believe I had to be obedient to God. And I did it. I started my country living journey. Well, I was in more of the country setting before, but I started my process of moving to where the area that I believe God wanted when I was 18 years old. That's when I moved to British Columbia because I believed the word of God, that when it said you need to be living in the mountains, you need to be living in the mountains. And so I got as close as possible as I could. Okay. Kevin Jefford, question. What good will the ark be if your character isn't transformed? Amazing question. Your ark will be no good to you if your character isn't transformed. But the reality is, in the process of building your ark, not an ark in the way that most people would think, like just a country property where you have a little garden and a this and a that, like an acreage or something like that. That's not proper preparation. I'm talking about no buy, no sell ready. You have 4 acres of garden. You have all of this infrastructure set up. You have the hand pumps. You have the wagons. You have all the hand tools. You have all of this, and you're practicing and you are getting ready. You can't do that and not have your character change. It changes you. You can't be preaching this message and not have your character change. If you're just going to hide and bug out, that's a problem. Everybody in this area around Amazing Discoveries knows that we're doing oxen. They know that we're getting ready. They know what we're saying, and they're all talking about it. That's the hammer that was talked about with Noah. People see what you're doing, and they start talking, and that spreads, and people know, and they're like, wow, what's going on here? What? And then you talk, and you don't hesitate. You say, Revelation 13 says we're not going to be able to buy or sell unless we have the mark of the beast, and that we're supposed to prepare for this time. They're like, wow, now I see. You got the garden, you got the greenhouse, you got the oxen, you got the this, you got the that. I get it. You're doing exactly what you're preaching. Even though I'm not sure I 100% believe you, at least I see you're doing what you say. Your character must change. But here's the thing. Okay. I'm going to say something that might bother a few people. So here's the city. Okay. There's a city. And now here's a nice little country property, in a nice hilly mountainous area here. Here's the little house. And here's character. You actually cannot develop the proper character in the city. It is impossible. The Bible says so in so many different places. Now, you can in the country. Whoops, wrong. You can in the country, but not if you don't want it. If you want to have Jesus' character, then your character can change. But even if you want it, you can't fully get in the city. You can start, you can learn, you can grow, absolutely. But in order to get that next level, that 144,000, you have to remove yourself from all these things. Why? Because that is part of the choice. That is part of the rich young ruler problem, is you have to be willing to remove yourself and do something that is not comfortable, that you don't like, that is hard, that takes all your resources, and you're losing vacation and you're doing all this stuff. This is dying to self and putting it all on the altar for what God says. Your character is 100% the point. But there's a quote. Whoops, that's going to be confusing. Agriculture is the A, B, C of education. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, it might be in Adventist Home, page 373. I'm going to check this so I don't say something entirely wrong. Let's see. Okay, this is where the one it says to educate our people to get out of the cities into the country. That's what we're doing right now, where they can obtain a small piece of land and make a home for themselves and their children. Small piece of land, we're going to put a little asterisk there because that's not what you think. That's what actually is meant that matters. And a small piece of land is a lot bigger than most people consider just because of context of our mind these days. Let's see here. I might have, let me see. Okay, let's see if I can find it quickly. Okay. Right here. I believe this is the one. HFM, which is Health Food Ministry, page 39. I've been shown that study and agricultural lines should be the A, B, and C of the educational work in our school. When I thought about this, I never really understood it. I'm probably going to have to move on, but this is a big part of your character development. It's a huge part of character development is being in the country, learning the lessons. Jesus made all these lessons about country living. Okay, we're going to continue on. Sebastian Baillieu. Questions about animals to help on the farm. You talk about oxen. Is it better to have a castrated male or it can be a cow? What do you think about ponies? How much land do you need for the food? Great question. This is going to have to be something we discuss at another time, but just quick reference. Okay, here's your property. Here's your garden. Let's say it's 5 acres. 5 acres of garden. Now, I can't till that, plow it, dig it, seed it, all that by hand. I've tried. We'll discuss that another time. Also, just hauling that food to the root cellar, hauling your wood and everything, draft animal is definitely your best option. Now, this is not a proper layout of a property. I'm just making sections just for visualization. So let's say you have your pen here of your animal. Now, how much food? Well, obviously, depending on the animal, the food is going to change. The volume of that food is going to change. How many animals you have, all of this. So there's a couple different sort of draft animals that you can go with. Oxen is one. Horses are another. You can go with ponies, like I believe it was ponies here that was mentioned. Another one is donkeys. Large goats is actually kind of an option, a little bit. I wouldn't rely on that to plow my garden, but just to give options. Another one is llamas. So all sorts of options. There's pros and cons to all of these. Now, horses, there's a saying, you eat like a horse, they eat a lot. Oxen eat less. Depending on the size, these are different factors. I would factor you need several acres in order of grassland, pasture land to feed any of these animals. We can talk about that a little bit more in detail. I personally, just my personal animals, just to share a little bit, I have 12 goats. That's half an accident because our one boy was supposed to be weathered or fixed, and he was not. And he got 2 of our girls pregnant, and so ended up with a lot more than we had anticipated. We have 12 at the moment. Some of those are going away to some of our neighbors. They want some goats, so 12 goats. I have one milk cow, and we're going to say not to drink because I'm entirely plant-based, so I don't drink the milk. And there's a lot better uses for that milk, in my opinion, than in your stomach. I have one milk. Oh, just milk. It's not just one milk. One milk cow. I have 3 working steers. So a steer is a fixed male, and they are going to grow up to be my oxen. Oxen is a title, not a breed. And each of these do different works. Oh, I guess I also have some chickens for compost turners, and also have llamas for a guard animal. So these all take space. You need pasture for them to go and eat. You're also going to need to make hay. So you need to figure out how are you going to make the hay. I have a lot of scythes and tools for making hay just by hand. It's totally possible. We'll probably do some videos on that soon. And depending on the animal, they're going to eat about 2% of their body weight per day. So that's an important factor to consider, is how much they're going to eat. I think if you don't want too many, but you also don't want too little, because then it just gets complicated with if one is sick or one is something or whatever. So all this needs to be factored into your property size, and you're going to want at least 5 acres of pasture land, grazing area, whether it's for goats or horses or oxen or ponies or donkeys or anything, because you don't want to run out. And then you're going to want a decent amount of area just for haying, so that you have for winter or for when the grass isn't that great and all that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that more another time. It can be a cow. You can use a cow. There's nothing against cows. Oxen are going to have more brute strength than a cow. So there's different factors there. Okay. Unknown question: does 80 have a study on this subject of the 10 kings? I've been working on a presentation for several weeks now, and at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, we're coming out with a series about these 10 kings. So make sure you subscribe to our prophecy newsletter so that you don't miss when that comes out. Okay, Sarah Miranda question: how did he come up with the death decree right at the very end? This is a great question, because this only takes place once this New World Order structure is put in place, and it's the final stage of the global Sunday law enforcement, the global mark of the beast enforcement. And it's the final stage when God's people are fleeing into the wilderness, and the wicked people are trying to chase them. Their swords fall like straw. God's people are delivered. There's a whole process that we're going to be talking about Jacob's trouble in these studies. So make sure you don't miss some of the upcoming studies, and we'll cover that in a lot more detail. Okay. Question. So I will stand upon my watch. Question. I thought in the time of trouble, plagues, the houses and lands will be of no use. Yes. So here's the thing. We have to analyze the different stages of time of trouble, because there is what a lot of people call the little time of trouble. Now, that's not a proper a phrase, actually, but people use it. Then there's the main time of trouble, and then the time of Jacob's trouble, which is another intensifying factor in the time of trouble itself. And we'll go through the process of all of this. But no, houses and lands, when we're fleeing, will be of no use. But we will still, once the close of probation happens, we don't flee immediately. That's not what's happening, because the death decree isn't being enforced. because what we're told is the plagues are falling. God's people are safe in their country properties, and the wicked are angry about the plagues falling, and they say it's because of them. We need to get rid of them. We need to destroy them. Once they're gone from the face of the earth, all the plagues will stop. So this is kind of, and that connects to the previous question as well. How do you get to the death decrees later? The plagues enrage the wicked to enforce this death decree to actually kill God's people. Okay. Mara Gita Z question, 15 literal days. I'm confused. Isn't a day for a year? Yes, day is for a year. Let me go back to this section here. But it says in Revelation 17, 1 hour with the beast, not 1 day. 1 hour is 15 days. It says the plagues come in 1 day, and a day is a year. So that's right here. Plagues come in 1 day. Revelation 18:8. So that's a year. But the 10 kings reign with the beast for 1 hour, which is a 24th of a year, which is 15 days. Good question. Candy M question, how much extra land is needed to raise food for one oxen? That's a really good question. It really depends on your area. That's why the preparation time is right now, because you need to know, hey, can I sustain this? Now, I would never recommend, and I will show this throughout the studies, and we're gonna get into this more. I would never recommend anybody get a property under 40 acres. And some people will disagree with me. I get that, and that's fine. But that's my recommendation, is 40 plus acres for a country property. Noah's Ark was big. And for me, 40 acres is still small. There's a saying, the back 40, that's the homestead part. That's because it's 40 acres is what is a sustainable use of land in order to sustain a family. 40 acres was like the starting point. And that's not way up in Canada. That is in southern, temperate states in America. That's not, it doesn't vary that much volume wise on the food that you can grow. The short season crops, yes, but the long season ones, you're only getting one harvest a year on those still. So extra land for oxen, you're going to be looking at, it depends how many tons to the acre you can get of biomass, of green matter, of hay. So depending on your area, maybe it's 1 ton to the acre. So 1 ton, which means you have to take how heavy your oxen are. Are they 1,200 pound oxen, 1,500 pounds, 2,000 pounds, 2,500 pounds? Now, there's good and bad to all of this. The ones that I have, I call them the boys. My boys are going to get really, really big. Most likely 2,500 pounds and up. On the low end, they'll be 2,200 to 2,300 pounds and up. They could push 25, 26, 27. They're going to be really big. So they will eat a decent amount more than something that's 1,500 pounds, obviously. But they're going to be able to work at a capacity that is really beyond something that is a lot smaller. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, how much work you're trying to do. There's a lot of factors. Also, the temperament of the breeds is a big thing that you really want to consider. You don't just want to go out and buy a draft animal and not know anything. That's why, it's good to talk to people who know what they're doing and have done this before just jumping in on the deep end, because there are breeds that are easier than others. There are ones that are better, smarter, easier, better for beginners. We have one that's pure Holstein, great for a beginner. He's like a puppy dog. Nothing scares him. You can touch him everywhere, pet him up. He just wants to come and lick you, just like a dog. And then he works. and super easy, but he's slow. He's, you know, just takes his time. And then we have other ones that are Holstein Braun V Cross, and they got power behind them. They want to work. They want to go. And even in those breeds, you'll get some that are skittish, and you don't want those. And you'll get ones that are great temperament. So it takes practice. It's good to talk to someone who can explain and walk you through that process. Okay, we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up for the night. We've been going for 3 hours just about. Michelle Macklin, question, doesn't the Bible tell us to flee to the mountains? Absolutely. We read that in Isaiah 33. That is the munitions of rocks. That is what is going to be our protection, the caves, all these things. Now, we're not supposed to plan what caves we're going to go to when we flee. God will tell us at that point. That's our time to trust wholly on him, where we have no planning involved in that part of it when we flee into the mountains. But if you flee into the mountains, you have to be living close enough to the mountains to flee into them. If you have to cross 3 states to get to mountains, that's not feasible. You can't run for 300 miles, 400 miles, 1,000 miles to get to mountains. So this is the thing. When we look at God's people throughout history, they were in the mountains. That's why they were in certain areas and they weren't in other areas, because they weren't in the place God designed them to be in. So yes, doesn't the Bible tell us to flee the mountains? It absolutely does. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this study. This is one of I'm super passionate about this. It's been one of my life goals is really studying how can we transfer these skills to regular people who haven't done this their entire life. Is this doable? Yes, that is the thing. It is doable. Can you do this? Yes. If you're living, breathing, thinking person, you can do this. And if you might need help, you might need to learn, you might need to change things. You might need, there's a lot of circumstances that will change, but it's definitely doable. And it doesn't take you being rich. It doesn't take any of these things. What it takes is being willing to obey God, whatever the cost. So thank you very much for joining us. This is our 6th study in the final Countdown study series. We're going to be continuing on this line, filling out the timeline of events as foreseen in the Bible, so that we are not caught unaware like a thief in the night, and that we can prepare so that we don't receive the mark of the beast, that our characters can be changed, that we can be more like Christ, and that we can warn the world and show them, like Noah did, that we believe what we preach and we do what we preach. Thank you very much for watching. God bless, and we'll see you next week in the next study.